Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating paradox that I think defines 2025. Why is the approval of artificial intelligence so surprisingly high globally yet? All the controversy, the skepticism, the alarm bells, they feel louder than ever. You've provided us with a stack of data that shows the technology being, rapidly adopted while also being profoundly mistrusted.
It's more than a contradiction. It's a global dynamic that really hinges entirely on context. We're seeing a world with high awareness and, high utility. But that doesn't just translate into high institutional faith. The data clearly shows AI acceptance is shaped by demographics, by economic status, and crucially by the geopolitical lens a society uses to view risk and reward.
Absolutely. So our mission for this deep dive is to synthesize all these demographic stats and surveys you've shared. We want to understand the core mechanisms driving this dual reality. We need to focus on where the acceptance is, where the distrust is emerging, and really analyze the surprising social dynamics like moral signaling that turn a tech critique into, well, a cultural performance. Okay, let's start with the hard numbers. What's the public opinion snapshot telling us?
So at the highest level, the global snapshot is overwhelmingly positive.
Really?
Yeah. If you ask a broad cross-section of humanity if they accept or approve of AI overall, the number's consistently high, sitting at around 72% globally. People see the utility in search, in commerce, in, basic productivity tools. They accept it's here.
72%. That is a massive headline number. But I have to think, the moment you zoom in, that acceptance starts to feel a bit brittle, right? If that's the global average, why is the U.S. such a big outlier? Our sources put U.S. acceptance way lower, somewhere around 54% approval. That gap is immense.
It is, and it speaks to the distinction between, let's say, passive acceptance and active trust. Globally, especially in parts of Asia and Africa, that 72% reflects an eagerness for the benefits. In the U.S. and other advanced economies, people are more focused on the downsides. When you ask them if they trust AI to make fair decisions, decisions that impact them personally, like a mortgage application or hiring, that 54% drops way, way lower.
So the U.S. isn't rejecting the tech itself, they're rejecting the institutions that are deploying it, especially given our, history of high-profile data breaches and spotty privacy rules.
Precisely. And if you look at the demographic nuances within the U.S., the picture gets even clearer. Young Americans, for example, they're the highest adopters. They're comfortable integrating AI into school, into work, using it weekly.
Sure.
But the moment that tool touches a high-stakes, sensitive area, let's say providing mental health advice or guiding a medical diagnosis, their trust just plummets.
Interesting.
They're highly skilled users, but they're also intensely cautious citizens.
That's a crucial distinction. So it's not tech resistance, it's risk aversion based on real-world exposure. The data suggests that people who use AI regularly are more positive about its impact. The usage drives the attitude, not the other way around.
That's the loop. But we have to remember that this ambivalence persists. High adoption means people accept AI as a feature of modern life, like the internet.
Right, like a smartphone.
Exactly. But that acceptance doesn't guarantee trust. Trust only increases when the safeguards, the ability to audit, the rules for accountability are crystal clear and actually enforced. And that really sets up the major tension we saw all through 2025.
So widespread adoption, but coupled with this deep structural suspicion.
That's it in a nutshell.
I agree, those structural issues are key. If people are finding real utility in these tools every single day, why is the controversy so loud? Why does it feel like the critics are dominating the conversation?
Well, the intensity of the critique comes from the fact that the skepticism is actually highly rational. It's rooted in real-world systems failure, not just some abstract fear. Our sources point to 5 key drivers that intensify distrust even while adoption is climbing.
Okay, let's start with the one we just touched on, that speed imbalance.
That's number 1. Rapid adoption outpaces governance. We saw employees in every sector in the U.S. using Gen AI tools, often without any clear company policy or ethical training, or even basic data security checks. The tech is just deployed at scale before society has time to draft the ethical standards or legal guardrails.
But isn't that gap a little overstated? If regulators in the EU can successfully propose comprehensive frameworks like the AI Act, doesn't that suggest the speed argument is more of an excuse than a real insurmountable problem?
It suggests the intent is there, but the fragmentation is the issue. And that's the second driver, governance gaps. The global regulatory landscape is a complete patchwork. China has a specific focus on generative content. The EU is focused on risk and human rights. The U.S. is still very sector-specific. This kind of fragmented approach leaves most citizens feeling unprotected, believing their governments can't effectively manage a technology that doesn't respect borders.
I see. So it's not that regulation is impossible, it's that it's uneven, which, of course, allows powerful corporate actors to exploit the weakest links. What about the more immediate drivers of fear?
That brings us to driver number 3, high-profile failures. We see a steady stream of widely publicized incidents, right? A facial recognition system misidentifies a person of color, leads to a wrongful arrest. Or privacy breaches leak sensitive medical data, or stock trading algorithms create flash crashes. These specific, tangible failures heighten skepticism far more effectively than any theoretical debate.
If the machine can't show its work, how can we grade it? That points right to the fourth driver, the opacity problem.
The lack of transparency. The black box. This is fundamental to mistrust. A user might accept that an AI can generate a compelling piece of text, but if that same AI is making decisions about their credit score, and it can't explain why it rejected the application, the system is rejected as just fundamentally unfair.
Yeah.
People mistrust intelligence that can't articulate its own reasoning.
And finally, the big one, the existential worry that really hits close to home, the economic factor.
That's it. Economic and social disruption, concerns about mass job displacement, widening inequality, and the fundamental fairness of who benefits from all this automation, that lowers trust significantly. When people fear the system will actively disadvantage them or their community, they naturally become critics. It moves from a technical issue to a moral and economic one.
Okay, so moving from the structural problems to the global map, we see these 5 drivers prioritized so differently based on geography. It's not this uniform global acceptance, it's a geopolitical split. It's driven by whether nations are, optimizing for opportunity or for risk containment.
That's a key synthesis of the data, yeah. Trust varies immensely by country, driven by perceived benefits versus the risks. Let's look at the nations optimizing for opportunity first.
And these are typically the emerging economies, right?
Yeah.
Where is the sentiment the highest?
The surveys show extremely high positive sentiment in countries like India, Kenya, Brazil, China, Nigeria, and Indonesia. They're often reporting well over 60% willingness to trust AI in various applications. And the why here is crucial. They associate AI directly with development opportunities.
Can you give us a concrete example? What does opportunity look like in that context?
Certainly. In places with, say, infrastructural gaps, AI promises a way to leapfrog. Think about educational access in remote areas, agricultural optimization for small farms, or improved basic healthcare diagnosis where doctors are scarce. The balance of expected benefits, solving immediate large-scale societal problems, it just outweighs the concerns about future, more nuanced ethical risks.
Right.
For these nations, caution looks like stagnation.
So if the technology can help feed your family or give you a better education, those ethical concerns about transparency, they take a backseat for now. But then you look at the advanced economies of Australia, the Netherlands, Germany, the UK, which are optimizing for risk containment, and the picture shifts completely.
It just flips. Australia, for instance, showed extremely low trust, right alongside countries like Japan, Finland, and Germany. Their priorities are just fundamentally different. These nations already have established functional systems, strong privacy laws, high wages, robust democratic institutions. Their focus isn't on acceleration, it's on preservation.
They prioritize ethics, individual rights, and privacy because they're operating from a baseline of prosperity. They have more to lose.
Exactly. They have higher media scrutiny of tech harms and, critically, often higher AI literacy. And this isn't necessarily a sign of resistance. It's a sign that they ask tougher, more nuanced questions because they understand the mechanics of data and algorithms better. It reduces the likelihood of blind trust. They're scrutinizing the risk of systemic harm.
And to link this back to the governance gaps we talked about, our sources point to this critical connection. National trust in AI often tracks with national trust in government and institutions.
That link is undeniable. If you, as a citizen, believe your government can enforce the rule of law and regulate massive corporations, which many do in high-trust emerging markets, you are optimistic about AI. But if you have low faith in your regulatory bodies, AI feels like an accelerant for existing injustice, magnifying corruption or systemic bias. The AI debate becomes a proxy for institutional faith, not just a discussion about code.
You know, when we look at this debate, we shouldn't assume public opinion moved in a straight line. It feels like it reacted violently, almost chronologically, to what AI was actually touching in the human experience. Public sentiment isn't a technical response, it's a cultural timeline.
That's exactly right. We can clearly map the last decade into 6 distinct phases. And it shows that current attitudes are not just a linear progression of fear, but a reaction to increased visibility and ultimately substitution.
So let's start with the time when AI was truly invisible.
That was phase one, quiet optimism. From about 2013 to 2016, AI was just tucked away, improving spam filters, optimizing search rankings, suggesting movies. It felt like software just getting incrementally better. There was no fear because it didn't challenge human uniqueness or agency.
Then we entered phase two, abstract fear, 2016 to 2019.
This is when the fear became theoretical. We had headlines about self-driving cars and AlphaGo beating the world champion at Go. The anxiety was philosophical, will robots take over? But it was still distant, a great sci-fi premise, but it wasn't affecting anyone's rent payment.
That distance disappeared dramatically in phase three, the ethical alarm bells. This is 2019 to 2021. This is when AI moved from a theoretical threat to a direct arbiter of human life.
Yes. This phase was triggered by highly publicized failures of trust. Facial recognition bias, algorithmic hiring discrimination, predictive policing scandals. AI was now making judgments about humans, affecting rights and freedom. Trust fails socially, not technically. The debate shifted from can it do it to should it do it.
And then a quick but important reversal in phase four.
Yeah.
The pandemic reversal.
Yeah, utility temporarily overrode that deep distrust. Automation felt necessary for survival and public health response. AI was seen as a force multiplier for a strained workforce. But that calm shattered completely in phase five, the generative AI shock, 2022 to 2023.
This was the single biggest opinion shift.
It was seismic. AI suddenly imitated cognition, generating persuasive text, producing original art, mimicking human voices. People weren't just asking, will AI take my job anymore? They were asking, what makes me special now? What is the unique value of human creativity?
Wow.
That triggered a deep identity-level fear, particularly among artists, writers, knowledge workers.
So we went from philosophical fear about robots driving cars to existential fear about whether we even have original thoughts left. That is a massive cultural shift in just 3 years.
And that leads us to phase six, our current state, normalization and polarization, 2024 to 2025. We have high adoption, low institutional trust, and a fear of dependency more than a fear of malfunction. The technology is integrated, but the cultural fight about its purpose has never been more intense.
The key insight here seems to be that fear emerges when AI becomes visible, when it gains agency by appearing to decide, and when it achieves substitution by mimicking uniquely human traits. People tolerate smarter logistics, they resist the replacement of judgment and the automation of meaning. That structural fear gives rise to a social dynamic we really need to analyze, the viral anti-AI stance. In certain circles, aggressively rejecting AI tools has become a form of cultural currency. Is this widespread anti-AI sentiment warranted, or is it comparable to adopting a moral lifestyle signal like veganism or extreme minimalism? It feels cool right now to attack AI users.
That observation is remarkably insightful. Structurally, aggressive anti-AI advocacy behaves very much like a moral lifestyle signal. It provides rapid moral clarity, and it serves as a badge of cultural resistance. It's popular because it flatters the speaker, implying, I see the dark future that others don't. And it protects threatened professional identities, all while targeting an abstract, convenient enemy, AI.
So it becomes a marker of status, especially for people who are maybe financially secure enough to opt out of using efficiency tools.
Exactly. For a creative professional in a high-income city, rejecting AI can be a status signal. But for a remote freelancer in an emerging market trying to compete globally, using AI is a survival strategy. And this is where the warranted critique becomes problematic, the misdirected attack.
We have to draw a clear ethical distinction here. Critiquing the powerful systems and the massive models being built is not the same as condemning the individuals who are adapting within those systems.
That distinction is absolutely critical. The system-level actors, the large corporations, the platform owners, the policymakers, those are the appropriate targets for ethical pressure. But what we see far too often is what we call downward attribution, where the anger just flows downhill. Outrage aimed at an abstract, wealthy corporation gets redirected toward visible, emotionally accessible targets, like students or side hustlers or hobbyists.
The anger flows toward your peer, not the powerful, and you argue this scapegoating is actively harmful.
It is, on three fronts. First, it misidentifies the source of harm. By focusing rage on individual cheaters or users, the pressure never reaches the institutions that set the rules. Corporate accountability stays low.
So it just drains momentum from the actual regulatory fight.
Precisely. Second, it fractures solidarity. Instead of uniting workers and creators against the asymmetry of power, it replaces the essential question, who holds the power, with the petty argument, who cheated. It creates these internal divisions.
And finally, you pointed out the class dimension that it can reinforce privilege.
Yes, it can reinforce class privilege by shaming necessary survival strategies. If a single parent needs AI summarization tools to complete a degree while working 2 jobs, or if a small business owner needs AI to run marketing on a tiny budget, criticizing that use is ethically regressive. The moment ethical outrage replaces proportionality, the argument just collapses into moral performance, not structural change.
This has been a fascinating journey through data, fear, and social dynamics. To sort of unify all this, the core truth seems to be that both the trusting side and the skeptical side of this global debate are, in their own context, being perfectly rational.
They are. They are. They're simply optimizing for different threats. The high-income democracies are optimizing for loss prevention and rights preservation.
Right.
The emerging economies are optimizing for acceleration and opportunity. The mistake is treating either approach as a universal moral law.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? What's the most defensible, the most pragmatic position to hold in 2025, given all this contradictory data?
The evidence strongly points to systems thinking and tiered deployment. You should deploy AI aggressively in low-stakes, high-benefit domains where it can increase productivity or access, but you must constrain it tightly where power, rights, or irreversibility are involved. So policing, hiring, or medical diagnosis. High utility requires high accountability.
And if the goal is social justice and system stability, the pressure needs to be redirected away from individual users. Where should the focus belong?
Squarely on power, governance, and labor protection. That means demanding transparency and auditability from large model developers. It means setting clear liability frameworks for corporations when their systems fail, and ensuring robust labor protections and upskilling support for those whose jobs are being fundamentally redefined. None of that is achieved by attacking a peer who's just adapting to the current environment.
That brings us to our final provocative thought. The deepest insight we took from all these sources is that public opinion tracks the loss of human leverage, not technical capability. People resist the replacement of human judgment, the automation of meaning, and the delegation of moral responsibility to a black box.
It's the automation of meaning that scares people the most. The AI debate is not fundamentally a referendum on technology. It is a stress test of how societies assign blame during rapid system-wide change, and whether we choose to confront power or simply scapegoat the vulnerable.
And how we assign that blame will determine whether we achieve real structural reform or just engage in endless moral theater. Thank you for diving deep with us. Continue to question not just what the tools are doing, but who benefits and who pays the price.
The nuance is truly where the truth resides.